You thought we were a one-hit wonder, didn't you? Welcome back to Clutch Kick, and today we're looking at a cult classic. This is in fact the 2016 Mazda Miata MX-5, the long-awaited 4th generation, and for the first time ever, we have a press car. You can't talk about the new Miata without talking about the new styling. It's a radical departure from the hairdresser's car that we're all used to. In fairness, I think the original Audi TT deserves that title more. Either way you look at it, this new Miata is so much more muscular than its predecessors. The front looks angry and the rear looks modern. Job done, Mazda. So we just reviewed the Subaru BRZ, and actually someone left a comment underneath that video asking, would we recommend the Miata over the BRZ? How do the two compare? Well, let's take a look at it this way. First things first, power. You'll notice immediately that this car pulls way harder than the BRZ. In fact, it does 60 in 5.8 seconds, which is 0.6 seconds quicker than the BRZ. There's several factors that play into this. It's 2,300 pounds, so it's actually going to be about 400 pounds lighter than the BRZ. The engine is actually the exact same size as a BRZ. They're both 2-liter 4-cylinder engines. And yet the Miata will pull a lot harder. It's down 50 horsepower, so how does it do this? Well, a lot of it will come down to the gearing of the car. The gears are actually incredibly short on the Miata, so you go through them a lot quicker and they help you accelerate a lot quicker. It's essentially cheating. What's happening is we're using mechanical gear ratios to give you more torque to help you accelerate quicker. On top of that, the Miata's engine pulls stronger all throughout the rev range. There's no dead spot at 4,000 RPM. And in fact, at 4,000 RPM is when all the torque is available. So at 4,000 RPM, it just starts pulling even harder all the way to redline. It's a very progressive power band, and it's much smoother than the BRZ's power band. Go! But of course, straight line speed isn't why you buy a Miata. It's about the way it corners. It's about the way it feels, especially with no roof whatsoever, with infinite headroom. So what makes a Miata a Miata? Well, first of all, it's the weight. And this is the same formula that Miata has been following for years and years. This new Miata actually weighs 2,300 pounds. It's 148 pounds lighter than the previous generation. It's the same weight as the 2nd generation Miata from 1998. Mazda follow what they call the gram strategy, which is looking at every single component on the car and trying to figure out how they can possibly make it even lighter. Take care of the grams and the pounds will take care of themselves. On top of that, the Miata has a perfect 50-50 weight distribution. The weight distribution was actually set up when there was a person sitting in the car. Steering has fantastic weight. It's an electrically assisted system like everyone else is doing nowadays. It's actually really heavy once you get up to speed. Around town, when you're parking, it's actually a little bit too light, but once you're on the freeway, once you're gaining some good speed into it, it's actually pretty heavy, and it has fantastic feedback as well, which is what you expect from a Miata. The shifter is one of my favorite things about the car. It's way lighter than the BRZ, it's very effortless, but it still has positive engagement. So yes, you can have both. You can have your cake and eat it too. The clutch is pretty light. The travel is a little bit long for my taste, but it has good engagement, albeit even if it's not entirely linear. The brakes, on the other hand, are fantastic as well. We are in the club version, we are cheating a little bit, and we do have the Brembos up front. They stop the car fantastically, but they don't have quite as much brake feel as I would like them to have. They're not quite as sharp. The initial bite isn't as aggressive as I would expect from a Brembo product. All these things add up for a fun package. Like every car, the Miata has faults. First and foremost, the driving position isn't quite perfect. The steering wheel doesn't telescope, and I can't quite get comfortable in the car. Now, a lot of it comes down to the fact that this car is really small and there's just not a lot of room for adjustment. However, everything is placed reasonably well. The gear shifter is placed exactly where you think it would be. The steering wheel is directly in front of you, and the pedals are spaced perfectly apart. I usually don't like floor-mounted pedals, but this one is an exception. It allows me to heel and toe exceptionally well. The other thing that really bothers me, though, is the throttle response. It's kind of numb, which is a disappointment because the engine is actually quite revvy. It revs up, it gains revs really easily, but to engage it, it's just kind of weird to use. It's a little dead for my taste. I first noticed this when I was rev matching, and I just had a hard time getting the rev just right without the car bogging down. So how does the Miata compare to the BRZ? Well, they're not direct competitors, but it really is the closest thing that we have. No other car on the market is this focused on having fun. The best way I can explain the two cars is this. The Miata is fun. It's lightweight, it's very playful. It feels like a toy, it feels like a go-kart. The BRZ, however, is more of a precision instrument, almost like comparing a McLaren to a Ferrari. The steering is incredibly sensitive. In fact, sometimes when I'm driving down the freeway in a BRZ, I'm actually kind of freaked out by how sensitive the steering is. Every little input into the steering creates an immediate result. The BRZ's body roll is really kept to a minimal, while you can really feel the Miata tilting through the corners. The Miata is also quite expensive for what is essentially a weekend car. This club version with its Bilstein shocks and its Brembo brakes is more than 30 grand. And for that, you don't get a glove box, and the trunk is only suitable for a single Hobbit. However, this 2016 Miata is my favorite Miata yet. The new Miata manages to capture the spirit of its predecessors while making subtle improvements here and there. It's managed to shed its girly aura in exchange for a more manly persona. Yes, I prefer the BRZ, but the Miata is still one of the most enjoyable cars to drive on the road today. In a world obsessed with 0 to 60 times and power and torque and all these numbers, the Miata really is a pure, unadulterated expression of what driving is all about.
That's a good shot.
Yeah, I like all the